Hello, I'm Askar Sharliyev and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. Astana became a media center on Thursday with the start of the media forum headed as always by the president's eldest daughter, Darigha Nazarbayeva. At the opening of the forum, she urged delegates to have an open debate, making these discussions quite heated indeed. Our crew attended the forum. Here are the latest details.
About 500 delegates from 40 states attended the 10th anniversary media forum in Astana. However, the famous and odious speakers invited by the organizers did not come to the event. Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, is under house arrest in Britain. Rosa Otunbayeva, ex-president of Kyrgyzstan, Condoleezza Rice, the former U.S. Secretary of State, Mikhail Gorbachev, the last president of the Soviet Union, and Nobel laureates were among those who did not make it. The forum was also not attended by Alexei Navalny, a Russian politician, and the phenomenon that will be discussed during the whole session on Friday. Nevertheless, it still remains unknown whether he was officially invited to the forum. Alexei Navalny, well, of course, Kazakhstan is a democratic state and it did invite people with diverse opinions, but I would not be glad to see him here, unlike Assange. Serik Akhmetov, the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, opened the forum and greeted the participants on behalf of Nursultan Nazarbayev. Many were surprised by such a turn of events, since everyone expected that the presidential appeal would be delivered to the participants by his eldest daughter, Darigha Nazarbayeva, who is the principal author of the project. The media forum focused on all the latest events in the world, including the Arab Spring, the situation in Syria, and the crisis in Europe. The first panel started off with serious confrontations between the United States and Russian experts. As it was noticed by someone from the audience, it was as if stereotypes of the Cold War between the West and the USSR was back again. The Russian delegates asked their opponents, why did America always dictate the rules of the game and declare terrorism as an international problem, but it believes that it should try them only by itself without taking into account the opinion of the world community. In response, experts from the United States posed a counter-question.
Finger-pointing and blaming America. Gaydar, how many civilians the Russian government killed in Chechnya? Okay, 100,000.
I tell you what, I'll ask the question.
In general, the forum was promised to become quite heated by the discussions, so the speaker of the panel had to calm everyone down, but the attacks on each other continued in the corridors. By the way, in this battle of giants, Kazakhstan apparently will have to experience not the most enjoyable part. Meanwhile, the Americans scare us with increasing extremism in Kazakhstan, while Russians say that Western influence is solidifying. The last thing they're interested in is mineral resources. Your mineral resources will be developed and sold at international markets anyways. They will not go anywhere. They are interested in transparency of the zone where they're planning to work. It is needed to eliminate any obstacles in form of laws and state sovereignty. Soon they will start taking away Kazakh children from Kazakh parents on the basis of alleged bad fostering conditions, and they will pass them over to international fostering organizations. It is a reality. Meanwhile, according to some experts, the struggle for geopolitical influence in Central Asia will only intensify, although they diplomatically prefer not to mention between which states. The most pessimistic forums heard on the forum, it is the upcoming Christian Revolution in Russia and Third World War.
President Nursultan Nazarbayev held a series of meetings with Turkish leaders within the framework of the official visit. On Thursday morning, the leader of Kazakhstan met with his colleague Abdullah Gül. They summed up the cooperation over a 20-year period and discussed the further development of bilateral relations. Later, Nazarbayev met with the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Erdogan. The president mentioned that during the years of independence, the amount of Turkish investment in Kazakhstan reached to almost $2 billion. Former Chief of Staff and current Head of Accounts Committee Aslan Musin left Kazakhstan for Europe, reports the website Respublika. The source notes that Musin allegedly doesn't intend to return to the country due to scandals related to his circle. To recount, after a high-profile dismissal of Atarau Mayor Bergey Rizkaliyev, who was considered Musin's financial assistant, the Rizkaliyev brothers allegedly left for London. A criminal case was instigated against former MP Amanjan Rizkali, and a manhunt was announced. According to the newspaper Respublika, Musin allegedly ordered all his subordinates to leave the country and may himself soon contact other political exiles for cooperation. According to the newspaper, Musin tries to get in touch with the exiled banker Mukhtar Ablazov and supposedly willing to speak up against President Nazarbayev, revealing all the secrets of Akorda. However, the audit committee officials have already refuted the information on Musin's escape. They informed that the new chief is currently on leave, while all the information posted by Respublika is not true. OSCE experts and Kazakhstan's top Ministry of Internal Affairs brass discussed ways of fighting extremism and terrorism at Thursday's roundtable. Despite varying declarations and suggestions, speakers agreed on one thing: radicalization is obvious, evidenced by the increasing number of special operations, which often result in casualties. The next story has more.
Experts from the West believe that social stratification of society is the main cause of growing extremism in the country. They are skeptical of the measures undertaken by the government. John Schoberlein, director of the regional programs in Nazarbayev University, noted that increased control and registration of religious movements might repel the believers, and this will only worsen the situation of religious extremism. OSCE is also concerned with the recent special operations which claimed the lives of both terrorists and law enforcement officials. The OSCE officials do not agree with the Senator Mukhtar Akhlebekov when he says that terrorists need to be killed. It seems very easy. Just kill the man and eradicate the problem. But according to international experience, it turns out that every murder might spawn new terrorists. Experts from Kazakhstan believe that casualties among the special forces result from the lack of experience in carrying out operations like this. They also note that those propagating terrorism should face tougher liability.
миндальничать с людьми, распространяющими террористическую идеологию, с людьми.
We cannot trifle with people who are disseminating terrorist ideology, with people who recruit and convert Kazakhstan citizens into terrorist organizations, where they are given the role of cannon powder, where they will just die for alien ideas and interests. We simply cannot trifle with people like them.
Миндальничать с этими людьми, естественно, нельзя.
Experts from Kazakhstan did not agree with OSCE drawing parallels between terrorist acts and social factors. Experts say that the Kazakh government is doing its best to allow the citizens to earn their living. They repeat the national leader's message: one needs to discard the welfare mentality.
Public activist Serik Sapargali, one of 3 defendants in the case of inciting social hatred, returned from Aktau to Almaty on Thursday. To recap, he was sentenced to a 4-year suspended sentence on October 8th and was released on parole. Serik Sapargali was greeted by his colleagues and associates at the airport. They decided to welcome him as a hero. Sapargali still doesn't have the identification on him, but traveling issues didn't bother on the way home. The court imposed some restrictions on his direct activities, yet Sapargali is not going to give up his beliefs. But first and foremost, the public activist wants to see his family after 9 months he spent in prison. I missed my friends. We want to talk and discuss everything. These 10 months were very tough. I was under arrest since December 19th. So much has changed in 10 months and I want to catch up on the news. It's a complicated situation and I do not know what the media says, but I picked up a newspaper in Aktau which describes all 3 of us as traitors. That's exactly how Tumba and Lada newspapers refer to us. Yet I believe people know better.
Ну вот я актауские газеты взял, там прямо называют предателем, вообще на всех 3 называют предателями.
Presidential advisor Yermuhamed Yertezbayev spoke once again on the subject of the high-profile case. Kazakhstanskaya Pravda newspaper published an article in which he disagrees with Human Rights Watch's assessment of the trial. The organization noted that the verdict is a huge blow to the freedom of opinion in the country. Yertezbayev in turn says opposition politicians were free to express their opinion and criticize the political regime. Prior to announcing the verdict, Yertezbayev made a comment that a real prison term for Kozlov would be too harsh. Nobody ever persecuted them because Article 20 of the Constitution guarantees freedom of speech and creativity. It really works in Kazakhstan. Speaking and criticizing is one thing, but attacking state authorities, putting on fire the administration building, calling for mass riots, which led to bloodshed, is a different story. The People's Alga Party Coordinating Committee made a political statement claiming the verdict is political payback, embarking the country on a North Korean path, when the public becomes hostage, victim and a slave of the narrow ruling elite. The committee calls on the European Commission, European Parliament and US Congress to sign the Janosian Act, conduct an international investigation of the events leading up to the tragedy, provide support to independent media and prevent them from being shut down. The statement reads, "We call on democratic forces to united action against authoritarianism, political repressions, as well as police and judicial tyranny." Russian human rights activists deem the verdict over Vladimir Kozlov illegal. They made this announcement on Thursday at a press conference in Moscow. Speakers drew attention to the fact that they will continue taking measures to acquit all those sentenced in the Zhanozyan trials.
They consider the trial over Vladimir Kozlov as political, while referring to the party leader himself as a political prisoner. Lev Ponomarev shared what steps would legal experts take to acquit Kozlov. 32/40, it is necessary to submit for review at the session of the European Parliament requesting a PACE rapporteur, although PACE obviously is not applicable for the mandate. Yet it is necessary to take it to the highest international level. We do not know exactly where to address this issue, but we will learn this along the way. Yet we're going to start with the European Parliament. Moreover, the gathered people outlined that the process has become unprecedented for the judicial system of Kazakhstan in terms of verdicts. The authorities easily convicted the opposition politician, pulling the card of inciting social hatred on him. From then on, it will be possible to imprison almost any party member or citizen opposing the regime, whereas recognizing the political party as an organized criminal group is the first instance in Kazakhstan. Human rights activists believe that anyone who was part of the so-called gang will now be facing litigations.
Discussions over the sentencing of Volga party leader Vladimir Kozlov, public activist Serik Sapargaley and oilman Akzhanat Aminov were also held in Warsaw. Polish parliamentarian Marcin Swinicki equated the trial over insiders to political process under communism. Polish people's representative said given how trials were held against the residents of Zhanozyan, the harsh verdicts against politicians were expected. At press conference, he also noted that the verdict may affect the activities of Volga Party and independent media, including Respublika Vzгляд, Stan KZ portal and KPlus channel, because these names came up several times during the trial. Polish human rights defenders are afraid that these media sources may experience problems due to conviction of Kozlov. Experts believe in order to affect the situation in Kazakhstan, it will take a ban for a number of Kazakhstan's officials responsible for the repression in the country to enter European countries. The conference participants concluded that something similar to Magnitsky or Tymoshenko list will be efficient. Civil activists organized a flash mob of dissatisfied dissenters in downtown Karaganda on Thursday. The campaign was organized in support of opposition politician Vladimir Kozlov, who was sentenced this week to 7.5 years in prison for organizing a criminal group and attempting to overthrow the constitutional regime. Serikjan Maulidbay and Dariga Barmenova organized the event in a crowded place on Bukharjaro Avenue. Not indifferent youth representatives approached the passers-by holding the pieces of paper and markers and asked them to write their wishes addressed to the leader of the opposition party. They also spoke of his political activity. This flash mob began at 4 p.m. and at its high point the officials and National Security Committee officers arrived. Everything was filmed.
Vladimir
Kozlov really tried to support the people, but it seems that our authorities don't appreciate when someone tries to help people. Flash mob lasted for just half an hour, and during this time only 5 people managed to write down their wishes. Later the observers asked the activists to leave or face the administrative charges, but the poster with the good wishes will be sent to Vladimir Kozlov soon. Preparations are made for another rally in Almaty. A campaign against raising women's retirement age to 63 will be held this Saturday. Public activists organized a press conference on Thursday calling on all Kazakh citizens to be more active and not allow the authors of this unpopular amendment to go forward with changes. We earlier held a roundtable regarding the meeting on October 13th. We are planning to organize another meeting, and we have obtained a permission from the city administration to hold an authorized rally. It will start at 12 and last for an hour. We asked for 2 hours, but were only given 1 hour for the rally. It is not the first rally to be held. A previous rally was held in the square behind the Sararka cinema last month. Like at yesterday's conference, all that time the residents stood against the chairman of the National Bank, Grigory Marchenko. He's an avid supporter of the idea of retirement age raising. Social activists said that having scrutinized the law about National Bank, they didn't find a single item that would allow Marchenko to intervene in the pension reform. Marchenko doesn't have any right to get involved and speak about it. I recently read and analyzed the law on a national bank. There wasn't a single reference saying that the head of the National Bank or management of the National Bank may get involved, much less participate in developing pension reforms. Another problem with the pension system is abandoned dividends in the saving funds, which parliamentarians raised in session earlier. Experts claim many Kazakh citizens are simply unaware of their savings and do not check their accounts regularly. The story next.
Former Dr. Yelena Begusova retired a year ago. Since 1998, according to new savings system, a part of her salary is deducted by the pension fund. The fact that in addition to the pension she relies more on investment income, the newly informed pensioner discovered quite by accident, and not from her own fund of 14 years that disposed of her funds at its discretion. I asked her how come people do not know about it. Why did they not inform me right away? She replied that it was the fault of Bostandik district. So it means that it is the fault of that young lady, and my case is an isolated one. But as far as I am informed, everyone whom I've asked has the same retirement plan as me. If a person asks for his share, they will provide it. But if he keeps silent, they just keep it to themselves. That is it. The case of this persistent resident of Almaty is very rare. Aidar Alibayev says that most of the Kazakhstan pensioners do not even count on receiving the extra funds from pension funds. According to the observation of the chairman of the Council of Pension Funds Association, the non-government pension funds is interested in accumulation of unclaimed funds on its accounts. As long as the owner does not come after them, money continues to bring profits. In accordance with the Civil Code, it is necessary to clearly and unambiguously determine the time limit within which the unclaimed funds could remain in the investment process of the pension fund. For example, the limit could be set at 3 to 5 years and set up the ceiling in accordance with these limits and determine where these funds should be directed, either to the state budget where all obscure funds get sent to, or it will make sense to allocate these funds on the accounts of all pensioners. And recently at the parliament it was announced that a 9-digit sum has already accumulated in the accounts of the National Pension Fund. Maybe laws are needed to be adopted to fix the situation because up until now the owner of a billion sum has not been found. According to accounting laws, the funds that remain unclaimed for the period of 3 years proceed to state ownership. That is what I propose to legislate. The representatives of pension funds share the view of the MP. In a phone interview, the company's staff explained that they wish to decide the fate of a billion sum, but it is not possible without appropriate regulations.
Forbes magazine publishes another list of the most influential business people in Kazakhstan. 50 entered the list with minor changes at the top. Topping the list is the former head of President's administration, Bulatu Timuratov, who shifted the last year's leader, the President's son-in-law, Timur Kulibayev, one step down. The last one in the trio of the most influential businessmen is Vladimir Kim, the CEO of Kazakhmys. Next in the top list are the members of Eurasian trio, Alijan Ibragimov and the banker Nurjan Subhanberdin. There are other relatives of President Nazarbayev who made it to the list as well. Daughter of the national leader and the wife of Timur Kulibayev, Dinara, ranks at 15 in the list of influential businessmen, while Nurali Aliyev, the president's grandson, and the son of the eldest daughter, Dariga, and exiled Rahat Aliyev, was ranked at 42. The country's youngest multimillionaire, who is only 27, is in charge of the capital holding. He owns polymetallic deposits and shares in ITK Channel, Radio Hit FM, Alma TV, and Telekrona companies. Sastobe cement factory employees in South Kazakhstan region are dissatisfied with working conditions and low wages. They intend to enter the newly formed labor union and start fighting for their rights. However, anyone who attempts to go against management of the cement factory belonging to the Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska are faced with widespread dismissals. More in the next story.
To the surprise of the cement factory, workers ended their workday 3 hours earlier. The management did not provide any reasons and asked everyone to leave the factory urgently. The labor union leader Bayan Korzhenbayeva believes that workers were released in order to avoid encounters with journalists.
Генеральный директор срочно созвал всех, начальников цехов, дал указание.
The director urgently gathered directors of all departments and requested that all staff leave the factory premises immediately. From 3 p.m. people started to leave. The production was stopped. Some female workers called and told me that the director of the department openly warned them that if they start talking to journalists, they will be fired. Management of the cement plant does not want to accept the recently created labor union and does all it can not to allow it to function properly, says the union leader. She also says that the rights of the workers are not respected at the plant. We often get work-related injuries and have to pay for the treatment with our own money, without any compensation payments. They have to issue uniforms for us twice a year, but they do not. We have sometimes to wear it for a whole year, even during the winter. Salaries are also very low. We now receive around $330, and this is with bonuses included. But without them, it is as low as $190, $200 per month. We do not receive any hazard pay as we used to, when they would give us milk and dairy products. If we are not satisfied with anything, they just tell us to resign. Sastobe village head, where the plant is located, informed that he hears of these problems for the first time. We will certainly visit the factory and see what is going on there, but no one appealed to us, or at least to me. 6 years ago, the cement plant became a part of the Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska's empire. As workers say, the collective contract between the administration and the workers was not signed at the time. Management declined to comment on the situation. The cement plant is the only factory in the workers' town of Sastobe. Around 600 people work here, and 100 of them have joined the labor union despite management's resentment.
Local authorities report that 10 out of 16 of the republic's heating plants are working at capacity, and there should be not any shortages. The rest are promised to be turned on this coming Monday. However, in Almaty alone, heating main repair works are in full swing. Our reporters investigate why the dug-up of streets are a first sign of the coming winter.
Repair works of the heating pipes is at its height. The heating season will start on October 15th, but judging by the scale of the works to be done, it might not be completed before that date. Residents of the city saw the first signs of repairs at the end of the summer, although the changes of the pipes should have started in April. Contractors explained that tenders were late and the timing shifted for almost half a year. People work overtime in order to make it on time for the heating seasons to start. Residents of Almaty are skeptical about this. Of course, they will not be able to complete the works of the remaining few days. I think that some houses will be left without heating. People should not be left without heating. I have doubts about the quality of these works. The materials are Chinese. They might be late, but we are used to this. Luckily for residents and contractors, October is rather warm this year. Kazakh Weather Bureau forecasts that the average temperature will stay at around 18-23 centigrade, but towards the end of the month, snow can be expected. We expect that in the third trimester of October, rains might be accompanied by wet snow, and sometimes after the precipitations, the night temperatures might reach 0 degrees centigrade, perhaps even between -1 to +3 degrees centigrade. Most of the heating mains date back to Soviet times, and the last time major repairs were done was in the late 80s of the last century. Attempts to get comments on the real state of preparedness from the local authorities have been fruitless for 2 days.
International Girls' Day, established by the UN, is marked all over the world on October 11th. This year's main topic was early marriage, the subject of the press conference at Almaty. Speakers voiced a row of issues that are rarely brought up in Kazakhstan.
Experts say that early marriage itself rarely occurs in the country. It is common for ethnic minorities and people in rural areas. According to a UN representative, Jun Gukita, early marriages are the most commonplace in Akmola and Mangistar regions. They make up 4.5% of all marriages there. About 30,000 young couples have registered their marriage in justice agencies within the last 10 years. Yesterday, experts presented their ideas how to tackle this burning social issue. They said that it is important to increase teen girls' awareness of their rights, support the ethnic groups to overcome national barriers, and amend the existing legislation, in particular provide comprehensive medical care. However, our research revealed that some young people got married at the age of under 16. Of course, such marriages are not registered. Nowadays, there is a growing trend to revive Islamic traditions. Unfortunately, owing to poor public awareness, poor knowledge of Sharia law, human rights and women's rights in particular, many parents are still practicing nikah, a Muslim wedding ceremony. Such a marriage does not have any legal power, though, and if the marriage breaks up, the woman is absolutely deprived of any rights to defend herself.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay well.